Hey you, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I hope that you enjoy being here and you eventually become a part of the family. If you're a returning subscriber, hello, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, do everything that you're supposed to do. Tell your friends to tell their friends so that we can all be friends, right? Okay, so today's episode is one exciting one because we have an amazing guest with us and we'll be unpacking a very interesting topic, a topic that is not really spoken about enough. So this is me being nice to you guys. So please be sure to give this video what it deserves, the likes that it deserves, the shares, and the everything that it deserves. So yeah, without wasting any more time, let's get straight into today's video. So our guest for today is none other than the one, the only, the extraordinary Mrs. K. Please do stay tuned. I promise you will not regret it. So without wasting any more time, let us get straight into today's business.
Okay, Mrs. K, thank you so much for honoring our invite and making time out of your busy schedule to have this conversation with us. Briefly, can you take us through an introduction of who Mrs. K actually is before we get into today's conversation?
Yo, okay, thanks. I think this is the first time I'm like properly introducing myself
Okay,
after getting married.
that's fine.
The last time I featured on anything, I wasn't married just yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm Nompendulo, Nompendulo Shongwe, also known as Mrs. K, because I'm married to Kumalo, right? So I'm just Mrs. Kumalo since last August. So my friends used to call me Bash, but after I've gotten married, I've got a new name.
Okay.
Mrs. K, that's the name I got.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah,
Okay.
that's a bit about me. I think I don't know what else about myself, just in terms of church or where I'm from. I'm from Swaziland. I'm from Eswatini. And then church, I used to fellowship at God's Purpose Kingdom and Free Evangelical. And then after getting married, moved to my husband's church, which is your church, Evangelical.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that pretty much sums up at least high level about me. I
Okay.
don't know what else you would want.
Okay, I think that's enough because today's video is about this conversation that we are about to have. So I think today's conversation is one that has been swept under the carpet for so long, such that young people are suffering and are kind of like getting hurt in terms of making uninformed decisions regarding it. So I feel it's very much necessary that we have this conversation on such platforms and by people who are kind of like relevant by in terms of age and progressing in life and positions where God has placed them and stuff. So the moment I thought of this topic, you're just the first person that came to my head for some reason. So first question would be, what is the importance of knowing yourself as a young person in terms of engaging with other people in, let's say, intimate relationships and romantic relationships? Because I feel this is like a huge decision and you can't let people into your life whilst you yourself don't know who you are. So can you like
Definitely.
highlight the importance of like knowing yourself before engaging with people in romantic relationships and stuff like that?
Thanks, Narciso. I'll just say that this is something I'm very passionate about.
Okay.
Um, I love talking about relationships. I did that even before I got married. I think since 2019. I was
Mm-hmm.
like hosting a lot of discussions with the youth and my church across different churches as well.
Yeah.
Mainly because there's something that I came across. I think as we continue the conversation, I'll share more about that. That it kind of transformed the way I think
Mm-hmm.
and view relationships. It gave me a very practical approach and demystified the big giant, like you can't talk about it, but you must do it. Because I think from my traditional church background, it was always this never talk about it, like stay away from Jolo, don't even dare touch it. And then
Mm-hmm.
at some point, There's going to be questions about when are you getting married. There's never been that
Mhm.
gap or like the transition of saying, okay, now you can start talking to boys. Okay,
Yeah.
now boys can talk to girls. And it kind of caused confusion because obviously you need to have like a proper way of
Mhm.
transitioning into you're growing in the stages and
Mhm.
being able to address it in a very safe environment.
Mhm.
So I love the fact that we're talking about it here.
Mhm.
And then when it comes to identity, I'd say that relationships aside, it's part of your journey, your growth. You know, you start from a young age. Your parents are very much taking care of you, like making sure you get your diapers, get your food, and then you start going to school. And at primary school, that's when you kind of discover yourself socially. I've got my friends here, this and that, and then you go to high school, and you become more of aware of yourself within your environment
Mhm.
and you go through puberty, adolescent stage. You identify yourself. If you're a girl, sometimes people put makeup.
Mhm.
Sometimes that delays. That's still fine. Some of us
Yeah.
took very long to get to that stage, but
Yeah.
it's all part of the growth process, you know. So I don't want us to isolate it from just the normal growth. It's so healthy, and when you get to a place where you want to be in a relationship, the big question is when. I know that people always say when exactly? Is high
Mhm.
school okay? Is like university okay? I'll touch more on that. I've got my own opinions, and
Mhm.
they may be based on my own experiences, not necessarily biblical, but I've got my own suggestions around
Mhm.
the reasoning behind what a specific age or a season. I don't want to say age because I think season is the most appropriate word.
Yeah.
So as you get to know yourself throughout the stages, when you finish Form 5, sometimes people do go to varsity. Some people don't, but
Mhm.
nonetheless, you're supposed to grow in that season. When you finish Form 5, you go into the season where you're supposed to kind of like carve your own path. What is the goal? How are you going to make a living? The whole point of your season after high school is make means to make a living. If you're going to go to varsity, the whole point is you're trying to make a living. Even your parents are supporting you so that you can actually just make a living and grow yourself, have a family one day. So whether you're going to varsity or not, whatever season you're in, be cognizant of the growth that's expected of you in that season. So it's very important first when you talk relationship, recognize the season you're in. Am I in a season of being a student
Yeah.
in high school? Because that's your focus. Then don't double up that. Like, don't try to build a family and finish high school. It
Yeah.
doesn't go together.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't work. Recognize your season. It's so important to be very cautious of where you are.
Mm.
And then also, then you move to the season of, I'm trying to get my feet on the ground,
Mhm.
whether that looks like getting a scholarship, or that looks like starting a business, or that looks like doing a school as a corner, you know, like just recognize the fact that you're trying to establish yourself to make a living.
Mhm.
And why am I emphasizing the making a living more than the spiritual part just now? I'm just trying to be as practical as possible. Whether you're Christian or not, this is a season you must recognize. Like, if you're going to start having children, because that's where people jump to immediately they finish high school,
Mhm.
there's a huge disparity between your income level and the situation that is demanding of you. Because a child will demand money.
Mhm.
If you don't have money because you've not made a means of making a living, then you've kind of delayed your way yourself in so many ways. And
Mhm.
sometimes that delay becomes a derail, meaning
Mhm.
that some people never recover from that. By God's grace, some people do recover, they get delayed, but then they continue on with other
Yeah.
means of making a living and they get to sustain themselves. So I think that's the first thing. Recognize your season.
Mhm.
And then the second thing is look at yourself as a spiritual being. I love thinking of identity as per the scripture. Genesis 1, verse 26, one of my favorite scriptures.
Mhm.
God says, let us make men in our
In
own
our own
image.
image. Mhm.
You know, he'll be like us. Exactly. And that for me is this is my foundation of who I am. Who am I? Who are you? You are made in God's image. So you need to like anchor yourself in finding out your identity in the word of God.
Mhm.
Because ultimately you came from God and you are here. on earth
Yeah.
to serve God's purpose.
Yeah.
And then also when you finish, you go back to God. So to people who are not sure about their faith, they need to ask themselves those three questions.
Yeah.
One, where do you come from? Okay, Nyaguva, you're not a believer, that's fine. But let's talk about this. Where do you come from? Can you answer sincerely between yourself? Like, do you know where you come from? Like, you were born onto this earth, from where, right? And then why are you here? What's your point? What's your purpose? Are you just here to vibe and then go die? Is it going to be vibes until you die or what?
Yeah.
Like, what is your purpose, right?
Yeah.
And then where are you going afterwards? What happens when you die? Because one thing is for sure, people are dying. But the time is fact. Whether you believe it or not, people are dying. That's a fact on the ground. The question is, do you believe that your actions in this realm have consequence into your eternity? It's a big part of our identity that we need to address. And when it comes to relationship, it's so critical for us as believers to anchor ourselves with people of the same mind. The Bible does say that do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers because black and white will not mix like that.
Yeah.
What business does light have with darkness? And on a more practical note, trying to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't have the same answers to those three questions
Yeah.
will leave you in a very big problem because
Disaster.
you will not face life the same way. You will not address situations in life the same way. So yeah, I think for me, when it comes to identity, it's all about where do you come from, and then what season are you in? Recognize your season, and then thirdly, where is God like taking you? Like in your walk with God, where are you? Are you just a baby? Like, did you just get saved?
Yeah.
Are you growing? And are you established? Ideally, people who are still born again, just like at a baby stage or infancy stage, I would say that put all your energies in growing your faith because you don't want to get mixed up, right? You want to put all your energies in growing your faith. So recognize the season you're in on your walk with God. That will also influence if you are ready to start talking relationship or not. Because you want to talk about, are you established in the word? Are you established in the teachings? And then can you stand? Like, have you had a walk with God that you can also rely on to say, look, I've walked with God past this stage. I've walked with God past this challenge. Like if God saved me from this sin, I can testify that I've withstood the temptation. I can testify I've withstood this temptation. I'm growing, and finally I'm established. If you are not established in the faith, it's not recommended that you talk relationship because what will happen is you'll find that you are not grounded or established in the faith. You will start dipping into your former life for reference in your current life.
Yeah.
Like, sharp, you're a believer now, but you want to date. The problem is you're not established in the faith. Now you're going to use your past reference, the information from the world, to make decisions in your new life. So that's kind of risky. I would say, yeah, in summary, those three areas, your season in your life, your season in your faith, and just being cognizant of where you come from, like what God has said about your life.
I love how you mentioned God as you were mentioning these points, because I feel like if you have this strong relationship with God, then all these other things will fall into place. Like you'll be sound of the season you're in, you'll be sound of the choices that you'll make. There will be no confusion basically because you have God with you and God leading you. So I love that you mentioned that. Besides the fact that this channel is all about faith-based content. So if you don't have God, child, get God first, So
True.
second question, I would like you to briefly take us through what a godly relationship really looks like and how it's different from a worldly relationship, like the differences and how we are expected to handle ourselves. Because just because we are Christian doesn't mean that our flesh doesn't act up. So how really do you hold that up, and how do you differentiate the way you carry yourself in your relationship as a Christian from the worldly definition? So please take us through that.
All right, thanks. Okay, cool. So we transition to the season where if the person has identified themselves, I'm grown, I'm established in the faith, I can make a living, I'm ready to find a life partner. That's great. Now the question is how, right? What's the difference between us believers and and those who are non-believers?
Yeah.
The first glaring difference is we always go with purpose. What is the purpose of you establishing a relationship? There's only one purpose believers have.
Yeah.
When we establish a relationship, we are getting married. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that I have to dream about the person and like be sure 100%. Because you know what? When I get to know a person further, there are things I may discover about them that I'm thinking, okay, maybe because of this and this and that, this is not the path I would like to take with you. Then it ends up being cut short. But that's not to say the purpose and the intent wasn't pure from the beginning. So we're not just dating with let's just see how it goes. We don't do let's see where
Going
it
with the
goes.
flow.
Like we start off like we know where we're going.
Yeah.
No, man, it's not big, but at the beginning stage, we were really going there. Like if a guy comes up to you, like I'm gonna speak from the perspective of a lady. To the guys need to figure themselves out in that season and then move from this season off. Um, I'm ready to make a living and I can provide for myself and plus a baby in the event that I do have a family, you know. So that's so critical. That's not to say you must be rich, okay? That's just to say have a living, like make a living. That's my point. And I want to underline the statement make a living. Because the world will tell you, you need to have money, girls want money. That is not true. Means of making a living. That's really where it's at. So I don't like the Twitter talk about indoor must, you know what?
Indodamas.
Indoor must be
Eh.
godly. That's the
Yeah.
only indoor must that we want. Indoor must be godly. Same thing with the girls. Lee mama must be godly. Like if
Yeah.
you're not godly, I mean, what are we doing,
What
right?
are we
So
doing?
it's so fundamental. Like the first thing is where are we going? The intent. Even if as a lady, I'm like, if you're saying to me you're in high school, you want to date, you're saying to me you're ready to have a family, you're ready to get married. And the reality check is you're not. Because we're gonna ask you about what's your purpose? Have you found your purpose? Do you even know where you're serving in church in the body of Christ? You haven't even identified so many things about yourself. So critical. The purpose it must be clear right on set. Like getting married is the goal, and Gyosoma, the intent is going to be getting people who are gonna the person you're gonna get married to. So that means angeke simso umfloka form 5 who's like a
I
student
mean,
because their priorities are
yeah.
not at building a family. They're not trying to build a family. So that will also influence your when you check for yourself, if you listen to this podcast, check where are you at? Like Mountain you are like it should be like that. If you're not, let's not even have that conversation. Put it aside, have other priorities. Now when you're in there, you're in the right stage, you're in the right season. This is where I really like got helped by a book and a program. I'll give you the link so that you can share with the people who've watched
Please
this
do. Please
and
do.
they could really like benefit from this. So there's
Mm.
someone called Chip Ingram. Yeah. So Chip Ingram is from the US. He's a pastor. Like he did a program, I think back then. But I got to interact with the material 2018, I think. It really transformed my life. It was in a small setup, like a lady sleepover. We watched the videos, and I just wanted more and more, and I pursued it. And we ended up sharing it with this mother of mine, like from church. We went from church to church, and we just gathered young people to talk about this. And we did so many groups just to discuss this. So, what was this groundbreaking information? It's exactly to your question, the difference between a godly relationship and the worldly relationship. He calls it the Hollywood method. Okay. So in Hollywood, meaning the literal the movie style, they
Okay.
always talk about. There are 4 steps. One, you find the right person. You see so many rom-coms. Have you ever watched any? There's so many of them. Find the right person. And then 2, fall in love with them, and then fix your eyes, your attention on this person. And then if it fails, start over. Like break up with this one, start again. It wasn't the one.
Okay.
You start over. And then
Okay.
it goes on. The cycle just goes on, right? And what you talk about in that is if you look at the method that finding the right person, it's very outward. There's nothing about me. It's about me. I mean, I'm gonna be like this. And I want to talk about this, especially today, where there's so much narrative around do you boo, like, it's either you take me as I am or you like get off, find yourself somebody else. No one is willing to look at themselves in perspective, right? People are just like, no, I'm just going to be like this. It's either you accept me or get rid of them, you know. That's the Hollywood method. Find the right person. So you ask men, what kind of person are you looking for? They'll be like, I want a wife who's clean, who cooks. I don't know, whatever else they'll list. And then you ask the person, do you clean? No.
No.
Do you cook? No. It's like, okay, but how about you? Like, before we find the right
What do you
person,
mean?
how about you becoming, what are you doing about yourself, right? Like, how are you showing up? Like, how are you preparing yourself for this life, right? So Hollywood doesn't say anything about yourself, it's all about the other person. Look for the man with the money, look for the man with the car, car cash, something, right?
Car cash.
Like,
Don.
yeah, exactly. Like, if he doesn't have money, red flag, red flag. Why? You have money. No, you don't. You don't even have a job for that matter. But the society is perpetuating, sorry, perpetuating the idea that the next person should bring it all. Don't worry about yourself. So it's very like bad in terms of the perspective. Obviously, it's not good, right? Then the third thing is fix your eyes and attention on this person. It's all about him, Ingobo Angsai 70s sing million. Guys sing up on selling him nigga diami city sing that one and like those comments. All
These
those
comments.
comments, they're always like, now I'm done, like it's okay about me. Sing focus which is why when they fail, those relationships, they fail hard. Like they crush. Because the person has built this whole picture, their entire life around this relationship that they've just started. And if it fails, they crush. It's fine. He wasn't the one. I'll start over and find another one. So that's kind of like the Hollywood mindset. And the other idea that I want to underline is falling in love. Falling in love, it starts off in the movies at least. Someone drops a book. When we pick up the book, they lock eyes. And then, wow, this was the beginning of their love story. I mean, come on.
Eye connection,
That's not real life.
whatnot.
Exactly. Sometimes, like, I looked at him, he looked at me, and then we just kind of like made that connection. So it's infatuation. It's not substantive, right? Because the people don't even know each other. They've never met before, and they don't have a context of how is a person's character.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of like the Hollywood. And when at university, I think most of the universities are the same, unless you're in a very Christian university. There's this thing called hookup culture. In my school where I went to school abroad, and I was shocked. I didn't know this was a life, it was a thing. But I found out there's this house parties. So when you're in school, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there's parties, and at the party, people drink,